Very popular story of a king in Egypt who ruled a long time ago. He was holding his court one of these, one of the fine mornings, and one of his archers, who was a great warrior, was showing off his skills. He was getting praised by everybody, except for one person. The local oilskin carrier who was passing from there was not impressed, and he told the archer that what you're doing is a matter of habit. What you're doing is something you do every day. The archer was very furious, and he decides to make an example of the oilskin carrier and shoots a target far away to the unseen eye, looks at the oilskin carrier and asks, "Can you do this?" The oilskin carrier takes all the oil from his oilskin, asks for a vessel, puts all the oil into it without dropping a single drop, looks at the archer and asks, "Can you do this?" It is meant for each one of us to realize that what you do on an everyday basis, you become really good at it. Good thing or a bad thing. Today we're going to look very closely at a phenomenon that we indulge in on an everyday basis for huge amounts of time and is now consuming our identity, making us very, very good at something which we should not be good at ideally. I want to talk to you today about the reality of a disparity that exists in our lives. This reality will eventually affect millions of people all over the world, all over the globe. I'm going to talk about the great chasm or divide that exists between what people think your life is on social media and what it actually is. In the last 15 years, the landscape of communication, business, and education has changed very rapidly, right? And it has changed even more rapidly in the pandemic. Today, most of us have on an average 5 to 6 social media accounts, and we feel we are more connected with people than we ever were. School reunions, college reunions, and you feel you're on the top of things. Yet so many of us today, if you really, really look, are experiencing feelings of increase in isolation and loneliness. Is social media causing it? The answer is not a simple yes or no. Let's begin by first looking at what is social isolation and what is loneliness. Social isolation is a state when an individual lacks a sense of belonging and truly engaging relationships. Loneliness is a state when you're not satisfied with how you're connected with everybody else and you experience deep emotional anxiety as a result. And every day you feel that you got to be connected more with different kind of people. Sounds familiar? Yet, 1 million people all over the globe open a social media account every day according to conservative estimates. Studies have shown that the result between social media and social isolation and loneliness is quite complex. It's not a simple relationship. Let's try and decode some of that. A primary cause of social isolation has said to be feelings of deep insecurity an individual develops over a period of time. Despite how social media is very popular among young teens, adults, everybody as a matter of fact, there's been a very remarkable lack of clear data on how it affects our personal lives and our mental health. Studies have linked its excessive use to depression, anxiety, lack of sleep, low self-esteem, hyperactivity. It's been cited to cause increasing depression in everybody. How did we get here? How did we even get here? Actually, the question that we all need to ask is this. Systems that were designed to get us closer to our friends and family and make us more social, how did they start causing these feelings inside us? And how did they start making us socially isolated? I have a few, reasons to talk about. I have a few points to make here. Every time you log onto social media, you tend to upwardly social compare. You tend to activate a social button deep inside you, which stops looking at reality. You may not be aware about this, but every time you're on any social media account, you're dealing with content that has been curated and created very carefully, but that may not be real. Even if you're aware of the fact that that is not real, you tend to carefully compare yourself. You tend to compare yourself with those accounts and ask yourself several times a day, how is my life compared to what I'm seeing online? Now, that's not a one-day phenomenon, right? The more time you spend online, the more you tend to kind of upwardly socially compare yourself all the time. I'm also going to talk about a phenomenon today which is sweeping the world, as in social media is causing it. It's called FOMO, or the fear of missing out. FOMO is basically a feeling when you see somebody on social media and you feel that You could have been somewhere, but you're not. You feel that you could have been someone, but you're not. It's a feeling of deep insecurity you get when you see that somebody with whom you have a very important social relationship, but not a real life relationship, is doing something which you feel you could have done that too, or you could have been there, right? With people posting pictures of holidays and vacations all the time. Problem is, many of these pictures may not be real. Who doesn't like famous? We all have our own variations of 50 seconds of fame, but it has never been, frankly, as relevant as it has been right now. Look at all the thousands of 1 minute videos cropping up all over the world right now. They either force you to look on an everyday basis, or they force you to create one yourself. You get the peer pressure, right? I want to make a video, I want to make a video too. And this is not an everyday phenomenon, day after day, every day for years. Have you imagined what happens to your collective psyche when that happens? And let's look at social media influencers. So, social media influencers are normal people like you and me who are interacting with us on various social media platforms. They represent us and they express their opinions on everything, thereby making themselves a brand or pushing other brands which they get sponsored by. The influences every day with short pictures and videos. You've seen one, right? Only problem is that may not be real. The problem is that today most influencers are projecting a lifestyle which is very inspirational to the thousands of followers they have. But frankly, it's not very real. And these followers follow the fantasy side of these influencers without knowing what their stars or their heroes do in real life. Of course, influencers have been hugely instrumental in bringing a lot of social issues to light. I know that. This is not anti-social influence, the anti-social media talk. I am aware of that. But the problem is that there has been so many times when misinformation has blown up, has completely kind of, blown out of proportion. Most of us also tend to trust our news feeds with great enthusiasm and a lot of conviction, right? Have you ever seen people in a restaurant, like families, friends in the restaurants or cafes? I'm not talking of those everybody says has a phone cliche that they do. Have you ever seen that they all try to argue about diametrically opposite views of the same event? And they are fighting about it, and they both are convinced that they're right. And in some ways they are. The problem is that they've read it somewhere and on their phones, or maybe some kind of a news feed, and they think that is sacrosanct. Is it a one-day phenomenon? I don't think so. It happens day after day for family and friends and people. It happens day after day, finally ushering this rigidity of our minds, our bodies, our souls. Where there's and in this there is no place in the world apart from anybody's. There's no place, but it's only our opinion that counts, right? It is an interesting concept. Recent research conducted on the usage of social media has shown that young adults have found it extremely difficult to distinguish between a thought and an action. Allow me to explain. So many of us feel that liking or supporting something on social media, resharing it and retweeting it, sharing it is equal to the same action which is being done by people at the ground level. We like to forward messages of solidarity to our brave doctors and people, frontline personnel, fighting the pandemic for the last 7, 8, 9 months, right? But we like to do that from the comfort of our homes. Should we get really called? I'm not talking to everybody, but should we really get called, for active duty on the ground and say, and we are told that let's all work on the ground to fight the pandemic. Everybody knows how many people are going to join, right? I mean, that's a bitter truth. It's a truth that we need to kind of come up with. There's this very popular case that happened before the pandemic of a social media influencer who has 1 or 2 million followers, and I don't really remember. And he rented this huge stadium and called everybody to meet for a regular meetup and said that let's meet up. And he thought there's going to be a huge crowd who are going to come and cheer him. 50 people turned up. 50 people. Let's try and make a differentiation today, right? Let me know if you agree with me in the comments below. Anything that you do on social media, if it's sharing, criticizing, applauding, tweeting, retweeting, or putting anything out there on social media, let us call that a thought. That thought may later lead to action, yes, but till then it's a thought. Anything that you do with your hands and legs and your physical self, that's action. That's something that you actually do, which is basically called action, right? Now, that is a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. Yet many of us spend huge amounts of time on social media on an everyday basis, spending huge amounts of time for things that don't really count. And when you sleep in the night, you feel you've done so much, and you get extremely tired, and you feel very satisfied when you sleep that I've done a lot in the day. Have you really? Why does this happen? Why do you think this happens? Human beings have a tendency to remember negative things. We tend to get affected by negative experiences much more than positive ones, and it's called as a negative bias, right? It's this same negative bias that causes us to watch these really dark web series late in the night, night after night, right? And that's a discussion for a completely different day. That's the reason why social media arguments leave a very bad taste in your mouth, right? Have you seen that? Social media arguments have this very bad taste in your mouth. You get very traumatized with it, and you think about it for days on end, right? Research has also shown that negative social media experiences are linked to depression and isolation. And for every instance of negative social media, that you actually go through, your chances of getting depressed and loneliness and depression and loneliness increase. The culprit here is actually social media, frankly. Through this, people who are already on the verge of depression, already on the verge of loneliness, they get affected more by experiencing very, very negative news feeds or very negative, news articles, which tend to kind of pull you down rather than push you up. Existing feelings of isolation and loneliness may rapidly escalate if this happens every day. And it need not be said or proven by any study that negative social media usage causes dementia, depression, it causes lack of sleep, hyperactivity, and so on and so forth. We all know that, right? What do you want to do? So what do? Do we burn our phones? Delete our social media accounts? No. Social media, if used in the right way, can be extremely powerful to propagate a message. Given how technology is advancing on an everyday basis, social media is just going to be a part of us, or how we interact and with each other in the future, right? Let's look at what you can do about this. I'm going to give you about 5 things you can do, right? Number 1, if you or somebody you know is already struggling with negative emotions in a sense of belonging, look very closely at what they are experiencing and checking on the news feed, right? Are you looking at people? So are you or they, for example, are you they looking at people to inspire on an everyday basis? Are you looking at news feeds for people to get inspired? Or do you look at news feeds and get FOMO? Or do you feel that, I wish I was there, right? Tip number 2. Let me give you this, very nice life hack. Practice small talk. Practice small talk with people. You must have all heard of this saying, right? The small talk leads to the big talk. So a good quick life hack is practice small talk throughout the day with 3 strangers you encounter. Any 3. Bus, shared cab, supermarkets. Say hello. Don't worry, it's not going to be creepy. The very fact that when I'm saying this to you, most of you must have smiled or smirked or said this is not going to happen is enough example of everything we have spoken in the last 10 minutes. Number 3, don't. And I repeat, don't. Sleep with the phone next to you. Thousands of people all over the world use the phone as an alarm, and as a result are connected with their devices mentally the whole night. My dear friends, your brain is the fastest supercomputer of them all. It's connected to your phone at all points of time and has been researched and proven to actually talk to your phone throughout the day. Buy a physical alarm. Buy actual alarm, the one that we used to use in old times, right? And that will radically improve your sleep. Lastly, and definitely not the least, I'm going to leave you with something to chew on. Stop endless surfing on social media platforms, looking for inspiration and motivation, looking at celebrities and fighting against each other for the sake of celebrities. Like, remember, for celebrities and influencers, you are only a number. Stop looking for role models and inspirations on an everyday basis. Tomorrow morning, when you get up, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself one honest question. Whose role model are you? Who do you inspire? Thank you. You've been a great audience.